Now, that said, super excited, as Holly is as well, to have Sarah be on our EUX SID tonight. Pretty cool to be able to have her talk on virtual onboarding. I think pretty timely at the moment, given the current environment and given how we're all adapting and changing to new ways of doing things and no longer jumping on planes and doing about 700 Zooms a day. So I think it's pretty fantastic. So I'm really looking forward to having Sarah, who is the strategic designer at Salesforce, give her talk tonight. So yay!
Thank you very much. Thank you, Adam and Holly, for inviting me along today. So I'm going to attempt to do the tech thing first by sharing my screen and just making sure that all of that works. Turning my video back on. There we are. So Adam, I'm hoping that that's all good from your end and you can see all of that. Okay, yeah. So I'm not getting any
all good.
Excellent.
All good.
Glad we did the tech run earlier. Thank you. So this is all new for me. So I have to admit, I'm usually quite au fait with doing normal presentations, but this is definitely a different mode of doing things. So I was given some very good advice earlier, was get a glass of wine and all will be fine. So I encourage everyone else to join me in taking a sip every now and again, and I hope you enjoy this presentation. So as Adam introduced me, I am a strategic designer at Salesforce, and I've been at Salesforce since the end of November. So I'm a relative new starter in the Salesforce ecosystem, and that gives me the privileged position to be doing lots of new fun things in onboarding. And today I'm going to take you through a bit of that journey. So in today's world, onboarding is slightly different to what it was, say, a year ago. So obviously the current climate, COVID, is meaning that we're all having to work from home, changing the way that we work and how we build connections and how we work with each other. And that's really changing, especially things that are experience-led. And when you're sort of in person with someone, how do you recreate that virtually? And one of the big things that Salesforce had as part of their onboarding was a bootcamp in San Francisco, which is a 1-week intensive bootcamp for all new starters to go and really live and breathe everything that's Salesforce. So I was due to fly off there in March, and sadly those plans were scuppered. And so Salesforce were really faced with the challenge of how do we recreate this? How do we create a learning experience for new starters that's equally as fun, engaging, innovative, informative, that really builds a sense of connection through a virtual medium? And I think that's even more so to be getting across the culture of Salesforce as well. And one of the things that's really interesting about this current environment where people are forced to work from home, it's actually encouraging companies to think about, can this be the new normal? Can it be that actually we move to a more remote workforce? For example, TCS, they've announced that 75% of their workforce by 2025 will be remote, which sounds wonderful. They can save money on real estate, I'm sure, but at what expense? And at what expense of human connection, experience, and culture? So that was just an anecdote, really, but something which was important that Salesforce wanted to really have at the forefront when they thought about how to redesign this experience that was this wonderful in-person event. So in only a few weeks, Salesforce pivoted from this 1-week intensive bootcamp into a virtual experience using Miro. And that is what I'm going to take you through today to show you how it can be done. A slightly different experience, but just as fun. So just to frame what was the old way, the old normal as we're calling it, the traditional onboarding, I was lucky enough to experience day one and the Ahana journey, which meant that on day one I got a deep dive into the organization with all the other new starters in Sydney. I got my laptop, I got my corporate things given to me, and we sat in a room for a day, and it was pretty cool actually, just doing that at the same time as all the other new starters. And what I was able to glean from that on my first day is that Salesforce has a pretty awesome culture and also some pretty awesome free food as well. So I remember walking through the kitchen, seeing the fridges stocked with every kind of thing from coconut water to Coke and you know, all the goodies and chocolates and what have you. So I definitely recognise that what they term the Salesforce stone is the likely thing that you're going to acquire in the first 90 days, aside from an amazing amount of knowledge. So trying to avoid the snacks along the journey. I completed the Ahana journey, which is sort of a portal that we go on to, and we do a variety of different things, whether that be trailheads or policy reading. And it just takes you through from being day one to being sort of a part of the organization and knowing a bit more about it. Following on from that is this wonderful experience in San Francisco, which is Bootcamp. And as I said previously, that's a face-to-face Salesforce on show, should we say, all the razzmatazz that you can imagine from that. So sadly, that was not to be for me. I did the first 2 steps, and a week before I was due to get on the plane, I sadly was told I was not getting on the plane to San Francisco. But never fear, the designers inside the Office of Innovation at Salesforce, which is what I'm part of, saw that as a great opportunity to reimagine what that bootcamp could be like. And here I would like to introduce you to Flight Academy. So Flight Academy is what the new normal or current normal bootcamp looks like. So this is specific for the design community in Salesforce. So designed by designers, as I'm sure you can tell, it's pretty cool. And I'm going to show you some of the awesome features that we've got on this today. So we've got funny videos, we've got mission boards, we've got a theme, so a space theme. We are all cadets. We have competitions. We've got down the bottom there a leaderboard where we can and be competitive, see how others are getting on. We've also got lots of different content in there. So a mixture of things to do with teaming. So how do we get to know each other? Things to do with the tools. So what is the design process at Salesforce? What is the things that we use to actually use as templates? How do we engage with clients? And then of course the products. You know, we have a huge suite of products at Salesforce, and I definitely admit I went in not as a product expert in the slightest. Still not a product expert, but getting there and getting a bit better along the way with the help of Flight Academy. So pretty engaging and pretty fun as a first impression. So I was very keen to dig in, and what I'll do is I'll just take a sample of some of the different things that we have in here and walk you through the types of, for example, activities or the way that they deliver the training. So firstly, focus on teaming. And I think this is really important. As I said in the beginning, it's like, you know, how do you get that sense of connection when you're, you know, a few kilometers away or thousands of kilometers away in our case? There was 35 new starters globally across the Office of Innovation that started in the last 6-month period, and we were all due to be in San Francisco together, spanning from our London offices to our offices in South America, Singapore, Sydney, and quite a few from America. And, you know, one of the most important things, like, we're here as a design community, so I'm preaching to the converted, but, you know, having that sense of community in the design world. And so for us, getting together in person and being able to actually make and break things and do things really interactively is super important, and getting to know each other. So having never met anyone else in person other than the one new starter in Sydney that I've got in my team, some of the activities that the team pulled together were really engaging. So the first one in the top right was post a picture of yourself as a child, a picture of yourself now, and a fun fact about you. And the great thing about using Miro is, I'm sure if some of you have used it before, you can be really interactive with tagging people in comments and starting a conversation. So, you know, you'd see an anecdote in there and you'd be able to double tap and click in and say, oh, hey, so I see you skied across the Alps in 2010. how did that go, or something crazy like that. So you're getting to know different members of the team, and in a really engaging way. Then they had things like the board underneath, which was fun facts about yourself, and you could post things on there and guess things about other people. And they also had things like a sketchboard, so you could take a post-it note in Miro and pair up with another buddy and tag them, and then take it in turns to sketch each other out. So there's some pretty comical examples of sketching in Miro. But most of all, it brought a sense of connection across different time zones and different teams. So despite the fact that some of us would have been doing it in different time zones, when you went back in, you could look at the work that other people had done, and it was really funny to see how it progressed. The next focus is the tools. So the tools is something which we, as a team and at the Office of Innovation, really pride ourselves in having, our own version of the double diamond methodology, our design process, and it's what we apply to our transformation projects and other things that we work on. And we have some really senior practitioners, again, which we're very fortunate to be able to lean on and get their expertise. And the beauty of this part of it was that they actually took the time to set up live calls. And what happened was you'd have a section on the board and be told, okay, so tomorrow at 9 o'clock, we've got an hour with a lead practitioner from the US team. He's going to dial in, take you through his slides, do it as a live presentation, and then they'd embed it into the Miro board afterwards, so that you could then go back and watch the recording again, but also double click into the templates, double click into the activities, and have it there as a constant future reference. And the practitioners were really generous with their time and made sure that I think they did 2 or 3 versions of them, which means that everyone was able to actually experience a live event. So that was fantastic. It then talks about, in different boards, about the practice immersion. So across the globe, we have a different construct of teams. So in Sydney, it's quite small, but in America, it's quite large. So I learned a lot through understanding the different format of the teams. And the beauty of that was, for example, in America, they have a dedicated research team, and the board explained exactly what they did. It gave templates of how they did their research. It gave examples of case studies, projects that they'd worked on. It had some pictures of some of the team. It had their contact details. And as you'll see on the snapshot there, there's some mission critical tasks. And this is what made it really interactive and engaging, because it actually gave you a purpose to going through the board. And one of them on that board was that you needed to actually, in order to win your badge for the board, you had to reach out to at least one of the practitioners and have a virtual coffee catch up with them. So again, it was really encouraging you to foster connections and build a sense of team across different regions and different specialties as well. And of course, again, having it in Miro means that it's always there. You can go back into it when you need it. At the point in time when I did the training, I wasn't on a project, so therefore I didn't need any of the templates, but I'm about to go on one, and at least I now know the single source of truth for what we do and where to go and get it. So it's a living, breathing document that will support going forward, even past just the onboarding stage. So then the final one that I just want to show you is on focus on the products. So obviously at Salesforce, we have a lot of them. Trying to get your head around them is brain bending at the best of times. Understanding the different nuances of them. But the great thing about this is we actually expanded outside of the Office of Innovation and called in experts from across the business, and they gave up their time to give live demos on calls to us. So again, we had the option of joining an hour to an hour and a half call, which was a mixture of a presentation and an interactive demo on different products. And these are people who are really passionate about their products. They know their stuff. No question is a silly question. They also gave us activities to do in them. But importantly from that, they built on it with our trails. So the trails are the Salesforce ecosystem learning platform where you can go on and, pretty much learn anything about Salesforce and all of their products. So there was a real sense of building that knowledge. You could watch the live video, click back on, do the activities that they'd set, and then go into the Trailhead modules and actually do some of them, which then again continue to build on the knowledge. So at whatever depth of product knowledge you required at the time, you could actually do that. And again, by going back to it, if I need to become an expert in Sales Cloud or Marketing Cloud, I've got the trail to go back and actually know how to acquire that knowledge. So the other thing that built upon that was turning it into real life examples, because for me as a learner, I learn context, and I know there's lots of different learning styles out there, but the case study fair was something that really brought it to life for me. So it's all wonderful watching these practitioners, but to actually be able to see what my team has done in real life in a case study and been able to see how they've applied a product at the end blends that mix of method and product, and also templates as well. So you had at the end the full picture of how to take the products, apply them through our methodology, and make them relevant in your context. And again, all stored in one place on Miro. So you can see people as they go through the board doing the different activities. You can acquire badges once you've done all the critical missions on each page. So that was the leaderboard at the bottom. So again, you could also see those who were more competitive than others did it a lot quicker. I decided, being in Sydney and having a small team, I was going to buddy up with the other new starter in my team, and we tag teamed and did some together and set up virtual calls and went through the boards. And I think I got to the end of it and I realized that actually it was just such a special experience that I'd been able to be a part of, which I hadn't anticipated being a part of. It definitely wasn't the in-person bootcamp that I had imagined it to be. But I reached out to the community and asked for their feedback as well, just to see if it resonated similarly with them. And I connected with Dee, who is one of the EAs in the Sydney office, and to ask her what was the sort of inspiration behind the build of the board. And as you can see from that, like the real energy behind it was really keeping that essence of meeting in person and creating an experience and a journey which really brought that to life. And by using Miro, we really were able to do that. It's hands-on, it's self-guided, you can go back and it's always there. And you can do it on your own or you can do it with others. So I think as a person who went through the journey, I definitely think they hit the nail on the head with that. The second person that I spoke to ask for feedback is one of my colleagues in Singapore, Anand, who, poor guy, day one of Salesforce for him was day one of office shutdown in Singapore. So he was expecting to turn up and meet all these new colleagues and basically got frog marched through reception, had his temperature taken, had to stand 2 meters away, get handed his laptop and basically, waved off goodbye. Who knows when we're going to see you again type thing. So I can't imagine for him what the first experience of just working at Salesforce would have been like. Really not quite what he was hoping, I can imagine. But I wanted to see how he felt about Flight Academy. And as you can see from his quote, it sounds like he loved it. I think I've heard anecdotally that he loves the culture. He thinks we're still super friendly, and he has definitely built a sense of connection with the Sydney team and his colleagues in Singapore as well. We work very closely together. And I'm just really thankful that we've had the opportunity to do that. And more broadly on a global level as well. I've met colleagues in London, in San Francisco, who I would never, other than Bootcamp, necessarily have had the opportunity to meet and get to know. So it's been an awesome experience. And I think definitely in terms of meeting different learning styles, it does that. And it's something that I'll be able to go back to over time and continue to learn from. And that's me, that's sharing my journey. So thank you very much for listening. And I'm happy to take questions and go into any more detail if anyone wants to.
Yay!
Yay! Amazing.
That was awesome. Thanks, Sarah. That was really good. Can I start off the questions by asking about Miro? Was that being used in the organization wildly, or largely before this environment, or was it something that was adopted as a result of the environment?
So we had a license for Miro prior to being in Corona land. But no, we hadn't actually used it. So, I mean, I say we, the Sydney team hadn't used it. I think some of the team in America had used it, but it was definitely underutilized comparison to the fact that we do everything on Miro now.
I know, it's crazy, isn't it? It's like Zoom and Miro have gone from having a license for and now all of a sudden doing everything in. So it's quite
exactly.
And it's quite impressive how you set up those Miro boards too. Like, they look really engaging. You know, they look like a lot of time and effort's been spent putting together those.
Exactly. And one of the things, just on the point of not using Miro prior to this piece of work or this period of time, on the first board, there was an intro board, which basically set out the intent of the entire flight academy. It also gave an introduction to Miro. So there was 3 videos which would pop out and tell you, the basic features of how to add a post-it note, how to navigate around the board, how to add. And so for someone who really, I think I've used it maybe once or twice before. That was great for me because I just, in 5 minutes, I was up to speed, able to interact, and off we go. And it wasn't any more complicated than
that. I've got a couple of questions that have come through now. So, has Salesforce considered the environmental benefits of the new onboarding process?
Yes, it's a constant a joke in terms of, should we just be staying in our own countries and not flying halfway across the world to San Fran? Absolutely, I think it's a global benefit, not just for Salesforce, but we can see air pollution has decreased. Venice canals are being cleaned, so there's definitely a global impact in less carbon footprint in the air. And as Salesforce, one of our values is being sustainable and being good in the environment that we live in. So absolutely, I think I don't have the answer for how it's going to work, but I definitely think it will be changing some of the hearts and minds going forward.
And now another really good question in terms of the sense of isolation and loneliness that's been felt by a lot of people in lockdown. How is Salesforce looking after their staff in terms of mental health?
Salesforce is amazing. I mean, I have definitely drunk the Kool-Aid. I'm a self-confessed, it's just been wonderful. So we have both a global initiatives and local initiatives as well. So an example of a global initiative is that every day we have wellbeing calls. So they try and schedule them so that they're in 2 time zones. So at least the APAC region can dial in 2 to 3 times a week. And those wellbeing calls are led by global experts on everything from sleep to tutoring children at home to last week we had, or the week before last, we had Brene Brown hosting it. We've had Drew Barrymore hosting them. We've had Colin Powell hosting them. We have had an array of seriously high credit experts giving their advice on a whole plethora of issues that people may be facing. And these issues aren't just issues plucked out of the air, they're crowdsourced from employees. So we have a frequently asked questions and issues list, and they're targeted so they're responding to the employees' needs. In addition to that, we have daily emails which cover well-being as well. And on a local level, we have leadership calls, check-ins with managers. It's just wonderful. I feel very, very supported.
That's awesome. That's impressive. Like, that's multiple levels of support. That's amazing. What a great company that you've worked for. That's perfect timing.
Very, very, very lucky. Yeah.
Catherine has said that she loves the fact that your outfit matches your headphones.
They're limited edition bows.
What was your favorite part of Flight Academy and why? And if possible, what bits did you feel could be improved or changed, and in what way?
Sure. So my favorite part was the teaming stuff. So I just loved the interactive way that you could build on it. So just by asking questions on Miro. So someone would post something, it would be a bit quirky or inspiring, and you'd just be able to leave a comment. And then even if they're in a different time zone, the next time you come back to it, you know, they've kind of responded. So it was iterative and it felt like the conversation was still going. And as I said, getting to know different people from different regions was awesome. So that for me was a personal highlight. The thing that I would probably like to change is the fact that and this was just circumstantial, that it was only myself and one other new starter in Sydney, which meant that the time zones were quite challenging if we wanted to do a hands-on activity together. So it was only myself and one other new starter, whereas teams from London and San Francisco had sort of 4 or 5 new starters, and they were able to kind of work more together on activities. But, you know, we tried to work around it as best we could. And I think it was just, just unfortunate, the nature of the time zone that we live in.
And was Flight Academy based on a previous template, or was it created from scratch as a result of what was going on? Or?
No, completely from scratch. So in 2 weeks, they built it from scratch. One of the lead creators, Eleanor, who is a designer in Chicago, she is just an awesome human, very creative, to the point where I think she actually got a custom-made like green screen out of a cadet uniform, and she did an intro video as if she was the flight commander, telling us all how to get on board on Flight Academy, and really did get physically got into the persona of that lesson.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really cool. That's awesome. That was so interesting. Hang on, I've got one more question that's just dropped in. How have managers coped and been supported in how to manage staff remotely? Has it resulted in a change of mindset of managers?
So managers are being supported very much in a way that's sort of learning from, so there's been quite a lot of surveys that have gone out, so employee wellbeing surveys for general well-being, but also leader surveys, so to all employees asking specifically about their leaders and their sort of first and second leaders. And asking really kind of like practical questions of, you know, how often have you been speaking to your leader? You know, what subjects are you kind of covering? Are they, you know, meeting your needs in that sense? And I think that that's off the back of probably leaders feeling like they need something a bit more bespoke. So again, a really good listening organization, they've heard that from leaders, and yes, leaders have access to all of the other wonderful things that we have access to as well, but it's clear that they have that additional responsibility. And so looking forward to getting the results and the more sort of tangible stuff specific for leaders out of that.
That's great. Sarah, thank you so much for giving your talk tonight. I think it was really timely, really apt. And I think, you know, the fact that was created in 2 weeks shows you how organizations can move quickly and respond so positively to being able to bring people on board. I think that's just awesome. So thank you so much. I think the questions that we've had and the meetup really appreciated it. So thank you.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Thanks so much, Sarah.
No worries.